Welcome to Hearties. We're so glad that you're here with us, Hearties. I am Marg Stark, a Facebook admin from Southern California, and I'm joined today by
Christy from West Michigan.
And Jennifer from Seattle, Washington.
And Sunday was a twofer because, of course, we got episode 2, which we have long awaited and enjoyed, but it also was the incredible 100th episode. So we're celebrating that with the most amazing person to celebrate that with, the co-creator and executive producer of When Calls the Heart, Brian Bird.
Hi, guys.
Hi.
Hey.
Thrilled to be with you on Heart to Hearties. I love what you guys do with this show, this after show, and so thrilled to be with you and thrilled to be with all of the Hearties who are watching.
Well, thank you. As we mentioned in our first episode recap, Lindsay Sturman is our new showrunner, but she is a member of the WGA and she would very much like to be with us. But in the absence of Lindsay, we're enjoying getting to know some other folks who are involved with the show. Last week, we got to talk to Derek Thompson, so we'll be talking to more of the Canadian writers. But Brian, you were the perfect person, of course, to have with us. I hope you can hear the ice cream lady in the background here. So ice cream for everyone for the 100. For the 100. It was really cool. If you have a moment, Brian, you really should take a look at the post that we put up in the Facebook group, because so many hearty congratulations to you and heartfelt sentiments, and of course lots of questions too. But Derek didn't even know when he was writing this episode that this was going to be the 100th episode. Yes. So tell us about, we know that there were some on-set celebrations and then kind of a dinner, looked like kind of a party afterwards. Tell us who attended and make us a fly on the wall. What did it mean to you and what was it like?
Well, thank you guys. Never in my or Michael Landon Jr.'s wildest imagination did we think we were going to be in Hope Valley and Vancouver, Langley, actually BC, for the 100th episode of When Calls the Heart. I've been involved in 2 other shows that went this far and more into their life. A show called Step by Step. I was there for the 100th episode. I was at Touched by an Angel for the 100th episode as well. And, very moving for experience to be part of something like that. I was just one of the guys, one of the writers, one of the writer and producers on those other shows. But this one, where Michael and I had such a, gave birth to this show with all the labor pains, I dare say, although I'm talking to probably a lot of women in the audience who have had children. So, maybe that was
we'll allow it. We'll allow it.
That was the wrong metaphor, but there were definitely some huge labor pains giving birth to this one. And so to get there, to be with the cast, to be with Jeanette Oak, who made it to Hope Valley for the festivities, with Brad Cravoy, with the cast, with the crew, with some of the folks from Hallmark and Super Channel. Everybody showed up, and Deidre Behar from Entertainment Tonight was there. So it was quite the. I mean, it was sort of rough hewing. We were eating, we were in the catering tent having our big fancy meal and our big giant cake, but it was appropriate, because we were having this during the filming of the episode. And so to get our cast and crew there for these festivities, they were all in character, all in wardrobe for the festivities as well. And the crew guys come in, get their meal, and then have to buzz back to set. So it was literally coincided with a crew meal. But it was appropriate because so much hard work and blood, sweat, and tears have gone into building this show. And, it's honestly 10 seasons. Who would have ever thought? And now, we're shooting on season 11 too. Who would have ever thought we would get there, given the humble origins of this whole thing. And I had, and this has now been almost a year ago that we celebrated this because we were off the air for such a long time. But I had such a mix of emotions, and from gratefulness to humility to joy to fear, little flashbacks of what we went through sort of, came back to us. But this is something that, you can't ever expect when you start, especially in the flaky business of entertainment that we work in. As I've joked in the past, for people who work in film and TV, they'll understand this. Maybe not so much for all the Hearties in the crowd, but it's a gypsy business. We are all just a bunch of gypsies wandering around looking for food. And when you find some food, you camp there for a while until the food runs out. And then you got to go find more food. And that's kind of our life, right? And so I've had the great, honor and joy to be part of shows that have gone for a long time. And the food still has not run out in this particular field that we've camped in. And we don't see it running out anytime soon. So we're excited about the future as well as the past. And honestly, so grateful to the Hearties for being part of this. There would be no 100th episode without the Hearties. I promise you that. And you guys, you're part of the sort of the super Hearties who help run all the social pages and do these lovely podcasts and after shows. And we would not be there. We would not have been there without all of you. So for all the Hearties who tune in on this, please hear me. You guys earned this too. You absolutely did. And we're so grateful for you. And there's no better fan army in the world than the Hearties. So we're excited about the past, thrilled about the past, thrilled about what's coming too.
Well, it's an enormous accomplishment, particularly considering how networks and platforms meter out the number of episodes. You don't get 20 episodes or 30 episodes or whatever you used to get in TV anymore. So to be 11 seasons, it's amazing. And then second thing, the Hearties' passion, you think maybe summer vacation is going to put a damper on things, and oh no, they show up. They show up with all of the fervor that 100th episode should have. So it's really amazing, and congratulations to all of you. It's really so exciting.
Yeah, the hunger for this show and for the values of the show, for Hope Valley, for the sense of community, for the stories, obviously, and the characters that people have fallen in love with, has not subsided, even though the hiatus was extra long this year for them. And if anything, it's a good example to us and to the networks that we're privileged to partner with in this show, to know that that nobody lost their appetites.
Let's start with Henry, because he's interesting. He said last night with the trial, he wasn't eager to relive the worst moments of his life, which were the mine collapse. Bonnie Shepherd Goodson of Maine asks, why is Henry giving up so easily? And will Pastor Joseph or Elizabeth help him get through it?
That's a great question, Bonnie. I have to say, Henry is one of my favorite characters on the show. And he was definitely back when Michael and I were writing and, you know, directing this show way back in the early days, Henry was the villain. Henry was the bad guy. And in many ways, he still wears those memories and those ghosts of his wrongs, you know, in the past. He has been redeemed several times now over the years. He's backslidden. He's, you know, given himself back over to his worst instincts. He has survivor guilt, I think, is probably the best way to look at this. You know, all those men died in season 1. He did not. He not only was he partially responsible for their deaths and had to live with that, those bad decisions that he made, but he also could have been in that mine with them too, and he wasn't. So I do think that there's, you know, of all the colors that we've tried to mine with the character of Henry Gowan over the years, I don't know that survivor guilt ever really reared its ugly head until this season, because I do think he has felt the forgiveness of the community. You know, when Florence forgave him last year in season 9, and when he, you know, knelt with Pastor Joseph to pray in the jail cell, you know, I do think there was a sense of forgiveness from the community, and also he knew there was forgiveness coming from above as well. And maybe the hardest part is forgiving himself. And I think forgiving himself and also survivor guilt is at play here, and really is sort of informing his almost sort of death wish in a way. You know, like he's throwing himself on the mercy of the court at this point, not pleading not guilty, but pleading guilty because honestly he did do what he's accused of. So I do think, you know, that's what's going on with Henry here in season 10. As you guys know, you know, we don't need Henry as a villain anymore. And so I think we have plenty of other ones that kind of show up every year. So I think that Henry needs to rid himself of his own villain, right? And I think sometimes that shame, that regret, you know, as in all of our lives, you know, what I love so much about One Calls the Heart is that it reveals universal themes that we all experience, even today, 100 years after, you know, the events in this show. That, you know, these themes of regret and shame don't come out easily. They're kind of like cancerous tumors that have to be removed, you know, with surgery. So, you know, he's got a lot of them, and these ghosts keep coming back. So anyway, but I do think you're going to enjoy what comes for Henry, especially when we get to not the final scene, but almost the final scene of season 10.
I think you're stirring a spoon again there, Brian.
I didn't bring it with me here today, but I need my prop.
Well, on the other opposite end of the spectrum, we had Ben Rosenbaum, who is comedic gold last night as Mike Hickam. He clearly has a crush. What can you tell us about that scene?
Oh, I love that so much. He wanted so badly to be the one to go on patrol there with Faith, you know? And everybody else got in his way, and he just had sort of a little gulp, you know, when it didn't go his way. It was almost like, wait, guys, wait, what about me? Yeah, it's so much fun. You know, Ben is fantastic as Mike Hickam, and I'm proud of him because I created that character, and I love Mike Hickam. I love his name. I love how people call him Hickam sometimes,
Hickman, or I mean, he just answers to anything. at
Yeah,
this
exactly. Yeah, they don't get it right all the time. He runs for mayor and then he drops out, and I love, he's like a Renaissance man in town. And the real Ben Rosenbaum is a Renaissance man. So the fact that he gets to wear so many hats in Hope Valley is so fun and so special. And every town, every show, every story, every myth, has to have the court jester, right? And that's what Mike Hickam is in our show. He's the court jester. He's funny. His reactions are funny. His understated sense of comedy and his timing is very funny. And so he serves as our comic relief in the town. Now, it's not like he's the only one. We have plenty of people that sort of wear those archetype masks, in all the episodes. Rosemary can be that sometimes, and Florence can be that, and Ned can be that. Everybody can do that, and they do. Even Mountie Nathan can do that too, right? He actually has some amazing comic timing.
At the end of the episode, Elizabeth was relieved that Lucas was not tempted to go to work for her father in Hamilton, and she didn't have to wear that poofy dress that she didn't want to wear, which is good. But in this very moving moment at the end, Rosemary shared that her mother had left the family at an early age. How is that going to play out as the season goes on?
Well, first of all, that's one of those moments that when I first read that script caught me by surprise, and I love it. And I love what Derek did with that storyline, because we don't know that much. Rosemary's so much bigger than life always, right? And the theatrical side of her, and her aspirations and her big dreams and all of that. And yet I had honestly forgotten her humble beginnings, right? As a character, that they weren't the happiest of beginnings. And we haven't really dug too deeply into that. And so what I love about that little window that opened there into Rosemary's soul is really interesting, because she's the motherless. She's the motherless mother to be, if you think about it. And I think that's a really powerful thing, because now all of a sudden, that person who exudes such confidence in everything she does, and is really quite gifted in everything she attempts, is uncertain, lacks confidence, because she's now projecting back on her own childhood, and she wonders if that mother who wasn't there for her is going to show up in her life, right? In her own mothering skills. And I just found that, it was such a small moment, but it was deeply moving. And, usually these episodes end with some sort of big wrinkle, some big cliffhanger twist or turn, there's a fire, or, somebody struck oil, or whatever. And this cliffhanger was a personal one. And I love that we opened the door there, because we're going to learn more about that.
Yeah, we spoke to Pascal about that very thing. And I think both John Tinker and his team last year, in delving into the infertility,
yes,
they allowed this complexity and levels for Pascal's performance. And now with this, I think both of those choices to go smaller is really enabling us to move Rosemary to a really interesting and new place. And she's becoming I mean, she's always had levels, but now we're getting a lot of nuance and a lot.
Yes.
It's very special. So
Yes, and you're going to find more of that coming too, where smaller is bigger
yes,
as we get, further into the season.
interesting.
So over the past 10 and now moving into 11 seasons of writers, the show's had multiple showrunners, and we imagine that each of them applied kind of their own gifts and twists and influence on the show. What would you say the new showrunner, Lindsay Sturman, brings to the show?
It's really cool. We've had, let's see, four male showrunners, and of which I'm one of, and we've had now 2 female showrunners, and as you know, this show is all about, never bet against the mama bears. I mean, that's what When Calls the Heart. I almost said the other show there for a second. That's what When Calls the Heart is all about. Never bet against the mama bears. And or if they're not moms, at least women who take charge of the situation. And so I think I'm a big fan of these ladies and their writing skills. I really am. I've worked for women in my career. Martha Williamson was my boss on Touched by an Angel. I've worked for men in my career. I love when we have women at the top of a show like we do now with Lindsay and Robin Bernheim, years ago. I just think there's I personally believe writers should be able to do anything, right? Men, women, Martians, people of any flavor should be able to do anything. Good writers should be able to write anything, because it's about identifying with the character and then doing the homework that's necessary. But there are inherent strengths that women can bring to a show about women, right? 100%. I'm not saying men can't provide some of that grist too, but I love the work that Lindsay has done in did in season 10, and now has done in so far in season 11 that we're shooting now. There's some wonderful nuance, and there's some big turns that are coming in season 10 that the Hearties need to be ready for, be buckled in for. But they're done with such grace and such nuance and elegance, really, that the turns, as hard as they might be for the characters and potentially for the Hearties, that are gorgeously done, beautifully communicated. And when I was reading the scripts for season 10, I remember many times going, oh man, I wish I had written that. Right?
Wow.
So, and I love that. I love that
Wow.
when that happens. I love that when that happens. When I see something that I want to steal from my own work, right? Because it's so good and so well done. And that's coming. And those things are coming in season 10. So so I've sort of wandered around on this question, but yeah, we've had 6. The first few seasons were Michael and me, and then we've had other showrunners since then. But there've been gifts and strengths in all of them, which I've just responded so much. Have loved so much. And Michael and I gave birth to the show, and so by handing it off now to other people to take some ownership in that creative process, we never take our eyes off the ball. We watch and read everything and give our feedback. But I love it when somebody flourishes, that works, for you and with you on a project that you gave birth to. When somebody can take over for you and make it flourish, God bless. Keep doing it, is what I say.
Well, the Hearties are loving what they're seeing so far. Debbie Twig Burl from Chesapeake, Virginia, offered her congratulations to you. And she said, let me read this here. So deserving. I'm so excited for you. And she has a question that lots of Hearties had. We saw this all over Facebook. Will there be a Christmas special this year? And if not, can you tell us why we're not doing Christmas specials?
Yeah, and I've seen those comments too, Jen, and Debbie. Thank you for that question. There are some good business reasons for it that won't always answer the heart of the Hearties and the hunger and then the want to. We love, obviously everybody loves good Christmas movies, or there wouldn't be a countdown to Christmas on Hallmark, and kind of like pretty much all the other networks too, doing lots of Christmas movies. So everybody gets in on the Christmas movies now. The challenge with When Calls the Heart Christmas specials is that so there's a couple of creative challenges with it. For one, they have to stand alone, right? So they're not sort of so when we do 12 episodes of the show, they're very much continuing serialized drama, serialized storytelling that all connect to each other. But the Christmas episodes have to sort of act on their own, disconnected from the chronology, of what's been happening in Hope Valley. So that's one, sort of creative challenge. It's not that they can't be figured out, but it's like, well, what gap do you, because when you go from a season finale to a season premiere, there's not much of a gap in the storytelling, right?
Right.
But sometimes it's a year later that we film them. So we try to keep those story gaps tight as we can. So trying to thread the needle with a Christmas special in between those stories is tricky. The other more of a business reason to do it is that, some of the other Christmas movies that you love so much on Hallmark, or that the Hearties love to tune into, can stand alone. Like they're one-off stories, they're one-off worlds. They're not connected to any other creative streams. And sometimes there's sequels, to those movies, but they are sort of standalone pieces, and they can air anytime, right? You can air them out of order. You can, when they're running Christmas in July, they can rerun a bunch of those things. And then to throw a When Calls the Heart Christmas special into that mix is kind of odd, from a business standpoint. And so they're just, they're lovely for the fans for sure. And, we did several of them. We did a New Year's special, and I think we did 3 Christmas specials. One of those launched the spin-off series When Hope Calls. It literally was the way we it was a planted pilot for the other show. So anyway, those are the reasons why it's just trickier to do. And I love them, but I also love 12 full episodes.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, no one's complaining about that.
Yeah,
Nope.
So if we were to do a Christmas episode, it would cut that to 10. Right?
Okay.
Usually would cut it to 10, because our order is really for 12 hours of content each year. So those are some of the more, practical business reasons for it as well.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. And we've got one more question from Danielle Keating of Puyallup, Washington. They gave me that question because I can say the city Puyallup because I live in Washington State.
Yes. Yes. I always think of diapers whenever I see that.
Danielle, I know you live in Puyallup. Anyways, she asked.
I got to go get my grandkids some Puyallups.
Danielle asks, is there any chance that Lori can return to the show someday? She is so dearly missed.
I love the question. I love the idea. It's a complicated situation for us. And there have been conversations for sure. And I think you've seen in the previous episodes that she hasn't been forgotten. Abigail, the character, has not been forgotten. She's not been forgotten either on When Hope Calls as well. We've
Absolutely.
involved her there as well. So she still exists out there in the world somewhere. And we reference her all the time. The name of the cafe has not changed. And Henry seems to have a real keen interest in Abigail's life and what's happening with her. And keep watching season 10 for more of that. So we all I can say is I have the same hopes for that to happen too. There's a lot of stakeholders that have to agree with that. And we're not, it's not a slam dunk no or yes either way. It is just a complicated situation, and many of us would love to see it happen, and we're praying that it does. I personally would love to see that happen for Lori, but also for Hope Valley and for the characters to have Abigail back. So let's
I think
hope.
it's something we can keep praying for. Time will tell.
Yes.
But I love that we got to evoke Lori's name as we celebrate 100 episodes, because of course she was so critical and integral to the show getting off the ground.
Was.
And so we never forget that.
Yeah, and if this little anecdote didn't arise in all of the conversations around episode 100, it should have. The first day on set with Lori in 2013, she said to me, I have a feeling this series is going to go 100 episodes. She said that to us. So, and she knows she did, and she remembers that she did, because we reminded her of that many, many times over the years. So, as much of episode 100's, the credit for it should, that goes to everybody else, should go to her as well. So, yeah,
it's kind of uncanny to think about. This show has now spanned 3 presidential administrations, several Hallmark CEOs. I mean, it just, change happens, and cable TV has declined. Streaming has moved forward.
yes.
Social media has changed dramatically just in the time that we've been admins. It's, the Hearties hashtag, etc. All of that was made possible by social media, but it's also become a place that can fuel division and lack of manners and kindness. So kind of against that whole backdrop, Joy Marshall of Westland, Oregon wonders, what are you most proud of with this series and with the Hearties community?
I love that question, Joy. Thank you for that. You guys have heard me say before, and others have heard me say as well, that I believe the most important legacy of When Calls the Heart, at the end of the day, looking back in history, will not be When Calls the Heart. It'll be the Hearties. The Hearties are, in my opinion, are the most important legacy of this show. We didn't know they were there until the show got off the ground and they spoke to us and they communicated to us. And it's been a revelation to me personally, to Michael, to Brad Cravoy, to all of our team over the years. The Hearties have been a revelation to us. And the revelation, and you know, Michael with his legacy, with his father, Little House on the Prairie and Highway to Heaven and Bonanza and all those amazing shows, he was the biggest TV star in the world at one time. Michael's father was. And so there's a vast legacy of family value and uplifting kinds of content from Michael's history. My own history is also, my own career is full of those kinds of shows and stories and films and, you know, episodes of TV. So you would think that we would have like known from the get-go, oh, well, this is going to be magic. Just watch what happens. We're going to make When Calls the Heart, and it's going to blow up, and people will come and love it, and it'll be on the air forever. We never said that. We were, and maybe we should have, you know, maybe we should have known better, but we just were working hard to try to make a show, and it was so hard to get it made originally that it was like, you know, working the fields of a farm for us. Blood, sweat, and tears, you know, tilling the soil and trying to make it work. So we, you know, maybe we should have seen it coming, but we didn't. And in the years between when I had finished Touched by an Angel in 2003 and when we got When Calls the Heart off the ground in 2013-14, a lot had changed. I mean, lots, as you mentioned, a lot has changed since then too. And it's the Wild West out there in the media now, in entertainment. All the rules are and the paradigms are all shifting now. But much had changed in the content. And in many ways, I kind of feel like we moved into the dark ages of television during that decade that between Touched by an Angel and When Calls the Heart. And the dark ages, what I mean by that is not ignorance, but content, dark content, corrupt politicians, and, you know, and
Anti-hero.
Yeah, anti-heroes and crooks and crystal meth dealers and, you know, monsters and all of those
Mob bosses and
mob bosses. Yes, dead bodies.
right.
You know, galore. All of it dripping with cynicism.
Yeah.
Right? Just dripping with it. And the audience in the world sort of following that content over a cliff into the dark ages, in my opinion. Now, I'm not saying it's not good, well made. It's beautifully made. Much of it is really well made. They're very gifted shows and so forth, but they're dripping with cynicism. And when we made When Calls the Heart, we were doing something more akin to what we were brought up with and what we were raised to do and what we experienced growing up in the business, but also as kids too. And what we discovered was that there was a vast, underserved, starving audience out there, starved to death for this kind of program. And we were just working hard to put it together. And then so we put it out there and they started to talk to us. They started to like speak to us and say, hey, where have we been all our lives? You know, it's like, we love this.
I think you guys were incredibly smart to listen, you know, in addition to providing that positive content and whatever movement of grace was afoot, because that can't be underestimated. But you also made yourself so available. You know, I remember the first, you know, time I was at a Hearties party and did a Zoom with you guys. I mean, you just went all out in terms of listening and interacting with the fans. And I think that's contributed to it feeling like a family and a community in a huge way. So thank you for that, because I know the kind of time and the Yeah.
Well, and yes, you're right to identify all those things. We believe it though. It's not like we're just like doing it because we
No,
Right,
I
or-
don't
or
mean in
try
a
to cater.
calculated way by
But-
any means.
yeah, but we believe in that. We believe that that family is real and needs to grow bigger because the world needs that family.
Absolutely.
It's not about a TV show all of a sudden. It's about more people who are connecting over a TV show, but who can now have community amongst themselves and kind of be role models to their neighbors and so forth. And that to me is really the legacy. Was the question, that what's most important to me, it's that legacy right there.
Yeah,
And-
it's part of a larger mission and ministry that drives you, and it's a beautiful thing. I remember I was first working at a very diverse church in California when I started watching this show, and I was so crazy about it, and I wanted to recommend it wholeheartedly to the very diverse congregants, with whom I worshiped. And I sometimes was a little reluctant to do so. And so it means a great deal to me that the show has become a more diverse cast. I wonder what it means to you. And can you speak to that as well as sort of double question? It's such a tricky thing. Again, we see these idealized historical worlds being created with much more diverse representation of cast. It's not an easy storytelling thing to do. So talk to us about that development over the 10th season.
Yeah, it was always Michael and my hope that it would go there. We knew that we would have to sort of become successful in order to do more of that. Get an audience, so it gives us more of a reason to be bolder and to try new things and try other storylines. I've never been interested in just checking boxes, right? I want it to feel organic and real.
Yes.
And there's a moment, in season 9 it was one of my favorite moments of all time when our school superintendent ends up having dinner with Pastor Joseph's family and Canfield House having a dinner, and he sees them in a whole new way, right? And I love that so much. Playing music, I was playing the piano in their house. I'm trying to remember the exact setup, but it was so gorgeous last year. And it was a picture, it's a picture of what heaven's supposed to be to me.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And so the more pictures of heaven we can do on
Right
One
here on
Call to
Earth.
Heart,
Right.
yes, here on earth, 100%. And it's an important thing to do. Look, we know that there are some people who are history buffs, who will look at our show and go, man, you guys are so off, real history there with all the hairdos and the beautiful clothes, and all the makeup and all that stuff. And everybody looks spotless all the time. And I've seen photos of small towns in 1920. It doesn't look anything like this, right? So, but what I always say is, do you want real or ideal? And I think most people want, especially in this age of zombies and vampires and the dark ages on everywhere else on the cable spectrum, I think people do want an idealistic picture, right? Mm-hmm. And so when I picture heaven personally, I don't picture dirty faces and grime and sweaty people and all of that. I picture more idealized, right? Now it's aspirational too, right? We all aspire to present ourselves nicely in the world, right? And so part of that is mixed into the psychology of that. So I often just say, if you want real, there's plenty of good documentaries. Go check out a Ken Burns documentary, right? We're not making a documentary. We're making entertainment. and we're making idealistic entertainment to give people something to hold on to, you know, what they can aspire to in their lives, and the values and the goodness and the kindness and all of that.
Well, I don't think we could aspire to anything better in heaven on earth than racial reconciliation
Yes.
and the reconciliation of differences across the board. And I know I was listening to James Lott Jr.'s after show yesterday. He was saying how much it means to him. It's not by, you know, to see Minnie and Joseph, I think it was even said that they're like holding the community together.
Yes.
And so there's no checking the box here. It's a real story, and it's just beautifully done. So
Thank you. I am so proud of that aspect of the show, and you know, we can do better and more with all of those things, you know, in hopefully the years ahead. But like, just, you know, Angela herself, she's such a lovely character, and she's, you know, she does check a few boxes, right? Because she's
absolutely disabled.
she's
Yes.
disabled and
Yes.
and blind, and so but she plays the piano so beautifully. So that moment where she's playing the piano with that crass superintendent, right? It was, and there's fellowship happening there.
Right.
And he's seeing the world through new eyes.
Right.
He's seeing the world through her eyes, interestingly. So there was such beautiful nuance in all of that. So yes, thank you for pointing that out. And Joy, great question. Love all of that.
Well, Mary Bright from West Richland, Washington wonders if you might ever write another episode of the show.
Oh.
And then while you're at it, maybe tell Hearties what being an executive producer looks like day to day.
Sure. Well, hi, Mary. Nice to have a question from you. I know you. Inside story there. You can ask Mary if you like. So Michael and I, you know, at the beginning of the series, did so much heavy lifting that we lived in Vancouver for, you know, more than half a year those first few years, and it was really hard on our families. And so after getting the show off the ground and season 2 got ordered, we figured, okay, well, this thing is moving forward, and so we want to hand the real heavy lifting over to new folks to do all that hard work. It was very taxing. And you know, our business is not family friendly. It never has been. You kind of have to force it to be family friendly. And because we built the show and we made the show, we got to make some rules about that. And so we voted for our families after, and there's a whole nother story. It would take a whole nother episode of Heart to Hearties to talk about, but we had been to the wars for a lot longer than just getting that first season done. And it was quite a hair-raising tale that changed us forever. And so we voted for our families. That doesn't mean we're any less attentive to any of what happens in Hope Valley. We, as executive producers and as the people that created the show, we in part owners in the show, we very much want the show to continue, right? And so we do everything we can to help that process, through giving notes on scripts, to giving notes on edits of episodes, to working at a high level on the show, pulling some strings here and there. And so that's kind of our role now. And I sort of got adopted by the Hearties too. And so a big part of my role on the show now has become, you know, marketing on the show and helping to further the Hearties community. So my wife Patty is, and you guys are all involved in this too, know well, you know, we work hard to put on these Hearty reunions every year. And I'm so thrilled. You guys, Patty and you guys all do so much of the heavy lifting that I can just come and just enjoy it and plug into all the hard work that you do. So anyway, we're very much organic to the show, continuing to be, you know, play that role all these years later. That'll never change. What it has done is opened us up to other opportunities as well, because we don't have to do all the heavy lifting ourselves. It frees us up to be able to put our fingers into other projects. And so I made 4 movies in the last year. Michael's and I have been trying to get a TV show off the ground. We've got several other projects that we're trying to get off the ground. I have a movie that's supposed to go into production at the end of August with Greg Kinnear directing. So we actually love it because we get to be proud, I guess, grandparents now of the show as it is continuing to have babies. And so we get to come and cheerlead and spoil the show and then go home and let somebody else do the parenting. So it's really fun.
Well, Vaughn Kilborn of Missouri has also lobbied for you and Patty to appear in a scene. So we'd like to know when that's going to happen in season 11.
Well, you know, Patty and I got into one of those old timey sepia photos that's like Knott's Berry Farm or something like that. I make the worst looking cowpoke in the world. So I don't know that that's ever happening, but
we'll need evidence.
Yeah. But when I'm making some of these other movies, we've been doing some of our little Hitchcock appearances in those. So we want the Hearties to love those too. So we'll show up from time to time in those. But thank you, Vaughn, for that question.
Reggie Ma of Edmonton wants to know if you have a vision, if there is a vision for many, many, many seasons yet to come. And maybe we start with episode 3, which is coming up this Sunday on the Hallmark Channel, 9
Yes.
Central. So maybe tease episode 3 as well as talk about
Sure.
what's you referenced some big turns, and so we're bracing ourselves for
Yes.
what's to come.
Yes, please continue to just take your heart pills and have the paddles nearby. Need to come back to consciousness. Not for this particular episode coming, but
well, I might need them just for that one kid who keeps pushing that
Yes.
bell at the front desk at the saloon. You know.
Yes, watch for the bell ringer this next week, and watch for a squirrel and dog fight coming this next week, and
Oh my.
watch for a baby shower. I hope I'm not putting too many spoilers in there. But yeah, it's really a fun episode coming. It's a lot of laughs and a lot of joy coming, and you might shed a tear or two as well. My goal has always been every episode needs to have at least one good cry, right? And so far, I think we're pretty close to hitting the mark on that every time. And so for every cry, you have to have 3 really big laughs. It's just a rule that I have. So, and we seem to do that. Our writing team always responds beautifully to those things. So Lindsay did a great job of getting us both giving us all the feels for sure. And that's what When Calls the Heart has been good at. And as to the grander vision for the future, obviously we go from, like I said, we're gypsies looking for food. And so the food has not run out in Hope Valley yet. And obviously we're shooting season 11 now. So we still have food through season 11. So, Hearties, keep watching the show like you did the first couple of weeks here this summer. I don't want you to cancel your vacation plans, but get to a DVR at least and watch the show in the first 3 days, because you are blowing it up for us. And I have high hopes that we're not stopping anytime soon. Now, it could all come crashing down, you know, and the ratings have a big impact on that. However, the Hearties are strong. They're strong. And they don't always agree with us. Every season, some Hearties don't agree with the story turns, and some need to take a break and, you know, and go away for a while, and that's okay. You know, we're not perfect, you know, making the show, and the viewers aren't perfect either in terms of what they want and what they selfishly want or what they think they need, or think they want. We want to give you what we want to give the Hearties what they need, not just what they want. See, and so that's what our responsibility is to give you what you need. And we take our cues from the rest of culture. So you see things happening in our culture that resonate, echo in the show, right? In twists and turns in the show. Modern day elements and dynamics happening in the world resonate in 1920 in a fictional town of Hope Valley, because that's us trying to give you what you need, giving the Hearties what they need. And I think the need is bigger than ever out there. I don't think there's a need for less Hope Valley. I think there's a need for more Hope Valley. I really do. And it's not just me wanting the show to continue. Obviously, I'm biased in that way. We're all biased. We all want it to continue. But I think the world needs this show. And that's great. It's not from a sense of ego on this. And it might sound grandiose, but it's food. You know, most of what you watch on television is like razor blades and broken glass. We're consuming razor blades and broken glass. It tears us up inside. When Calls to Heart, he is a healing agent. We will keep doing it as long as the Hearties keep watching it.
You make a great point, though, about giving us what we need and giving us what we want, because I think we think of Hope Valley as kind of our escape and our happy place. And it's, you know, a very idealized, pleasant kind of world. But I think you also like to challenge us. And I think predictable TV wouldn't be truly interesting to any of us. So
Yes.
It's always kind of a mix. You keep us on the edge of our seats in our happy place.
Yes, we have, yes, great point. And we've learned lessons too about, you know, what we can't do and what we've done and what we shouldn't do any more of. But we also, you know, some of those things that happened in the past were necessary changes.
Right.
Were, you know, we couldn't control them. So they're not going to be anything we can't control this year, but there is going to be a good example of, I believe, coming from a motivation on our part of what the Hearties need as opposed to just what they want. In season 10, a pretty big wrinkle. So I don't mean to get people nervous about it, but it's always good to have, you know, a healthy dose of being ever watchful.
I think your resilience, you know, I mean, I think the nature of doing the work that you do is being accommodating, but also holding true to what's, you know, to your values and what's important. So, you know, showrunners come, showrunners go, you know, different artists come in. I mean, it's, you know, so many stakeholders, so many notes, all those kinds of things, but then having this, you know, guiding sense of what's driving you forward. So
Yes.
For all of that, for carrying the show forward amidst all of that change and all of that hurly-burl around you, thank you. It's a gift to us every Sunday, and one that we'd love to see. I don't know, 200, 500 episodes. I'd like to be celebrating right back with you at the Hearties very soon. So thank you, Brian, for being
Thank
with
you,
us.
guys. Thank you for having me on the show. And this is a big adventure that we're all on together. It's a big adventure.
It
Let's
is
keep-
indeed.
let's keep on.
Yes. In the words of Rosemary and Lee, it is a big adventure. So,
Yes.
so Hearties, the big adventure continues this Sunday, 9 o'clock, 8 Central on the Hallmark Channel. Please tweet with us with the hashtag Hearties. We would love it if you want to like and subscribe to Heart to Hearties. That helps us as well. But we'll be right back here next week with another recap of the episode. And we look forward to seeing you then. Thank you so much.
God bless, Hearties.